then I'm setting it up.
By this time last year,
It's starting to get
5 times.
Yeah, I think so. Last 2 years, not just last year.
There's weird conversation.
Oh, they
You
showed
know
us.
that my husband was
You're saying edit the video?
Yeah.
Okay, just take all the stuff out.
Yeah. Scrub it, if you will.
And really take me out too, because I don't like being on there. John, can I borrow your packet?
Yes, I got some papers loose. Oh, yes.
So I had my first meeting,
I should-
guys, with some old friends of mine from church, and they're looking to buy. So I got all the criteria, and I'm going to be setting up a search because I have an appointment with Marnie on something else this week today.
This is the perfect class for you.
So
This is the perfect cost for
good.
you.
So she's going to help me set up the search so that it'll go to their email.
I have a training, I have a 5-minute training video that tells you exactly how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I can watch the video, but she's going to sit down side by side and do it with me.
I sit down with you side by side in my video and do it with you.
Okay, well, I'll do that too. I can do it all.
You can do it however you want, I'm
struggling with learning from videos because I don't learn that
Oh
way.
my gosh.
Like, I don't watch a video and then can do it.
So we bought our house in
It's
Scotland
like with
3
the,
years ago, so it's probably been about
yeah.
If you pull up the video on your computer and you pull up the MLS on your computer, the video is me in the MLS going click here now, and then you click
See, I
there.
don't even know how to do a split screen. I don't even know how to do
You just
it.
open up 2 windows.
You make it sound easy, but I don't know how to do that stuff.
I'm just letting you know that the content's already been created by me, it's already there
If we
for
can
you.
make an appointment, I can show you how to do some of that stuff.
So I don't
And then
remember
I
who I
can
was
watch
working
the
for,
video.
maybe you filled
When
in the
I'm-
meantime.
Like, I'll watch the
remember
MLS
this.
videos, but I
I
can't
remember
do
you
it
showed me
while I'm
this.
watching it because
I needed a lot of work.
I know,
It was a
but the thing
colonial-
is my 14-year-old boy is not interested in helping his mother. He's too interested in eating.
That's okay. No, I'm sure
What
you
is
see
it?
a lot.
He's interested in eating on his playing on his Xbox.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to feel like you have to wait and go, and it's great that you have this resource.
Yeah,
I just want you
yeah.
to know and utilize us.
I'm pretty sure
content
that's
that
where
we
it
No,
have.
I can, but it's just I'm struggling trying to
Blonde,
Yep.
get appointments with you.
You guys had
Because
just
I'm
sold the home.
doing
Yeah,
this,
right.
and I've got
Yeah.
my kid, and I
You were
have
looking-
obligations in town, and I have a job. I mean,
Yeah.
like yesterday,
And then you sort of surfaced again.
I had 4 obligations, like back to back. I totally not had a job first thing in the morning.
Did we work
And I had
together?
that meeting.
Do you remember?
No, I
Right.
showed
Office.
you stuff.
Yeah.
And then from there, I had to
But we
go see my girlfriend who was dying.
I understand all those, and so I don't mean to be a dumb horse, that's why the videos are a good resource, because you don't have to get an appointment with me, you just go watch the 5-minute video, and you don't have to do it.
So how do you do, so if I have a map,
Well, I actually went on to a team, helped build a team with Jessica Chan.
You just drag, it's hard to explain, you know at the top where you have multiple pages open, you just click on one and drag it sideways, and it will create a second screen.
Trying to keep.
well, that sounds easy.
Yeah, no it is, and if you wanted to put it back together, you just drag it back
Now
together.
that video.
Anyways,
is
we
that
ended up
on the
renting for a while because we were gonna
Yep,
build.
there's a training videos folder,
Okay.
and then it's called
We
MLS,
rented-
how to set
Yeah,
up
we
search.
rented for a while. It worked out better
Or
for us.
something, it's called something like that.
We're starting, Pleasant Hill area.
Okay, you wanted to
I need to get it open up
Yes.
pretty quick.
Good. And
So
you're
I
in
just-
real
I just
estate.
said,
No, I'm
yeah.
just gonna utilize
So
all
That's
the
always what I
knowledge
wanted to
that
do,
I
but I
have.
just never
You kind of had a knack for that.
pulled the trigger on
You know, a lot of people do. A lot of people like that. You know, a lot of people.
You can turn it on.
They know everything on the market.
Yeah, so you open your internet,
And they're watching
you know how to add a
prices.
second page, right? So all you do is drag it,
Yeah.
and then you can go
People going
to.
back like every
So all you have to do is
I mean, that's how we found the house. Like, it wasn't even from the
and then make the second window
broker.
smaller than the other.
I found it and I was like, oh, there's an open house. It just came on the market. Let's go.
So
I don't even remember how I found it, but
Yeah.
and so I called her up.
Well, the technology that's out there today. So, you know, I looked at my phone this morning.
Right in my drive, you have PC 2019, that's my drive.
You know, if I didn't have the alert, I wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
Because
And then,
it's,
and
you know,
here you go, you
they're
have
on the go.
Yeah. Training
So we
videos.
could have, but when I
And
started,
here-
we had white bills that were delivered every other Wednesday. And we would like wait for delivery of those white, and they were like telephone
Here, you know, it says,
and they were all like house, and we would like flip through, and then we'd circle like, this is gonna be good for tackle. And then we go to the photo, and then we, you know, print out, copies, and then we mail them to you.
Oh, and I,
Or we would have to, like, call, and you would verify.
yeah.
But that was like a whole bunch of buyers. totally
which
different
is to
market.
set up that search so that
Wow,
when
that
the
thing's
market
changed.
will go down.
I know.
Right?
So, so the technology that, you know, it's like, it's interesting because if you set people up on auto search
And then let's search
as an
providers.
agent,
Okay.
a lot of times people are like, I don't want to be just an auto search. I want an agent
They're
calling the entire
they're also
business.
selling.
It's hard to stay ahead of that technology though.
Yeah, they want to.
See, I was the one that liked that because I was looking at it and sifting through because I knew better what I wanted.
Yeah, I don't,
Right,
right.
In my mind.
Right, of course.
But now I'm learning more about
She
it.
wants to
Like,
sell
oh,
her
there's
house.
other things.
So I'm gonna do,
Yeah.
CMA
Yeah.
for her.
That's
and
nice.
then
So are you on it as his full
the
time?
office downtown.
What were you doing? You were a sales.
Yeah, I was in food sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the last company I worked for, it was interesting because I knew they weren't a smoke company. I used to work for Cisco's, billion-dollar company. And they kind of got
Well, no, it's, no, they're advertising it on the, in the email, that's going at,
It's hard to compete against those guys. And,
yeah, this is class, so they pretty much do the
So I
same
kind of was like,
thing.
okay, now's my time to do this. This is my background.
It's,
So I took the class.
Thomas Investor,
And then,
yeah.
fairly recently, they said, we need to announce something. So I've been searching for something because, you know, I have some saved up, but, you know, I don't know how it's gonna last, so it's my intent now. And I want to, I'm still kind of searching, but my intent is to go for more with this because
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be a tutorial how to use Flex MLS. You can certainly go to that.
Now's
I went to one when I got
like,
started.
I can get them
Yeah.
going now.
So I just gotta pick
I
it
just
up.
help through the winter when it's a little slower.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing in food sales. You know,
Do you want to show
powering in
how
the
to
winter.
shut it off, or do you want to come back over?
I don't care, either way. But anyways,
Because you just hit the red button, right?
I'm sure I'm gonna use you guys and just,
We're gonna cut this out.
I'm usually one of the, I'm just like one of these people, okay, I need you now, but it doesn't work that way.
Well, you guys are friend of mine, just past client.
Well,
So I just need to sit down and watch.
Well, we
all this
are,
and-
and we've got.
Yes, he was Cisco.
You see how it's set up now?
In Boston.
I would run with that for now.
And he moved up here to take, to run the main division.
Okay.
And,
In the meantime, I'll have these two things going. Started. I'm just having my, I got freaking, my girlfriend Lily, everything she touches turns to gold.
I'm gonna get started. We're a few minutes late.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. We're just a few minutes behind schedule, no problemo. Get everybody settled in on this wonderful summer day.
Oh, yeah.
All right, as always, we're going to start with our mission for the week. All right, so go ahead and take out mission number 7. Mission 7, the intention of this mission was to be completed prior to today's class to prepare you for today's class to get the most out of it. So please take out your booklets and let's review our 10-4 activities. Somebody help me out. What are the 10-4 activities? We went over this Monday.
I'm not saying it, I always say it, I ain't doing it.
Some contacts or actions.
So 10 contacts.
Or
Okay. What are the other actions? What are the other 3 actions?
Use your database and. you have
Put those
to
contacts in your database. Thank you, Sandra. And what is the name of our database?
send a
Command.
Command.
Send handwritten.
Send a follow-up message, a handwritten note or note card, or some type of correspondence to that new contact. And then, last but not least,
Preview homes.
previewing homes. So as we talked about last class, if you don't have the actual ability to go due to your schedule or availability to look at homes in person, which is the preferred method, then at minimum go on the MLS and look at the inventory and study the inventory in the area that you intend to be working in, or the area that your buyers are buying or your listings are selling. So those are the 10-4 activities. Again, guys, the whole purpose of the 10-4 is to start building your database, start connecting with people, whether they want to buy real estate or not, because they may know somebody that wants to buy real estate.
Yep.
So if you know 100 people, all of those 100 people know another 100 people. So you see how you have this compound effect going. That's 10-4. Okay, practice scripts with a partner. Who's doing this regularly? 1? Who's practicing scripts with a partner? Here's what I'll say about scripts. For every time that you talk to somebody that's interested in buying or selling real estate and you don't have a script, you just lost $7,500. So how much money are you going to lose before you're willing to put in some time and effort into your dialogue? Scripts are how you effectively communicate with potential buyers and sellers. If you can't effectively communicate, they're going to work with somebody else. Or you're going to miss the opportunity altogether, right? I say $7,500 because that's the average commission here. 3% based on $250,000. So I just used that little example as a way to kind of make it more real and put a dollar value on it. It's imperative that you practice your scripts and role playing. When do we do it in the PC room?
Mondays and Mondays. I know Mondays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, Tuesdays. I thought technology in the afternoon.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. And what time do we do it?
I was gonna say the crack of dawn,
8:30.
8:30.
8:30, which is the same time right now. So I know you're capable of waking up and getting here. We do it for 30 minutes. It's quick and to the point. Let's practice, and then let's hit the phones right afterwards. You don't have to stay in the room when it comes time to hitting the phones. I know it can get a little noisy in there, so don't feel like if you come, I'm going to force you to call people in front of an audience. That's not the case. I want you to come in, practice your dialogue in a real-life scenario, get some feedback from your peers, and then go utilize that practice in real life on the phones. In addition to Tuesdays and Thursdays, you should have a script partner, right? Where do you find a script partner?
right here.
Right in this very room. If you're online, maybe any other agent in PC, any other agent at Keller Williams. If you don't know any other agents, where might you find them? What are some ideas? Where can we find other PC agents?
PC room.
In the PC room, in the PC office. Different training events on the PC Facebook page, right? There's a private group specifically designed for just the PC agents to communicate with each other. Why? Because you're all at the same point in your careers.
Don't you have a list of everybody's contact information?
There is?
We also have a list.
PC one?
We also have a list of everybody in the PC program in their service areas. So if you're going to make say you have a friend of a friend that wants to buy a house in Bangor and you don't service Bangor because it's too far of a drive for you, I have a list of PC agents in Bangor that are happy to take a referral. And vice versa, you'll be on a list of agents in whatever your service areas are for people to give referrals as well. So the idea is interact, communicate, get to know, build relationships with all other agents in real estate, specifically those at Keller Williams and specifically those in the PC program. Grow up together in real estate. Learn together, give each other feedback, and practice your scripts together is the whole point. All right, moving right down the list. Bring some things to tool. Let's see here. Buyer representation agreement and buyer presentation. Has anybody seen, prior to this class, a buyer representation agreement?
Yes.
We call it an EBRA, exclusive buyer representation agreement. Perfect. Today's class is all about buyers. So the first thing that you do with a buyer in that initial meeting is fill out a representation agreement so that you can legally represent their interests. Then from there, or prior to that, you will have given them that buyer presentation, which again, we're going to go over today. It's imperative that you have and you practice your buyer presentation. And during that presentation, you use scripts and dialogue to do what? Effectively communicate with your potential client. So scripts aren't just about cold calling people to be a salesman. Scripts are about practicing the real estate dialogue that you're going to use in your presentation now that you're in front of somebody to say, this is what the buying process looks like, and this is why I'm the person that you should be working with to help you through this process. So that's all part of scripts.
And people have a really warped perception of what real estate agents do.
They absolutely do.
My boss at the restaurant, he's like, hey, I'll give you $5,000 if you find somebody to buy my house. And I'm like,
It's not how this works,
and,
buddy.
and I'm like, well, first of all, I don't think legally I can do that. And second of all, why would I want to do that? Because this is my job.
Right,
This is how I'm making my living now.
right.
And he's like a $300,000 and something house. I was like, well, I think it's a ripoff that we got to pay. I pay $15,000 in commission. You guys don't even do much. And I was like, so then I said, well, Dwayne, you're obviously not very educated.
Thank you, because I was just about to ask the question, what is an objection?
I said, you're not very educated about, and that's just my own thoughts. I mean, I don't know if there's a script for that. I said, you're not educated on what, I said, first of all, I have a lot of expenses that I accrue.
Sure.
You know, just like you as a business owner, you have to pay to put the gas to keep your stove running.
Right. And just going back to your point, Sandra, an objection, sorry, that's not yours.
Yeah, I think so.
An objection is an unanswered question. So when somebody gives you an objection, I don't want to work with you, I don't want to pay you, you charge too much, what do you actually do? What are they really saying? I'm uneducated and I'm uninformed. So what does your job become? To educate them.
Yeah.
And you do that through a buyer presentation and a listing presentation. And you use scripts that you've been practicing to effectively communicate your value to answer their questions. Do you guys see how this kind of all comes together?
Mm-hmm.
All starting with scripts and dialogue.
Well, I used the script from Bold with him.
Great, and there's specific objection handlers for questions like that, no objections / questions like that, because do you guys think we get the same objections all the time? Absolutely. I don't want to give you 6%, I want to give you 4%. I don't want to give you 6%, I want to pay you $5,000. I don't want to list with an agent because. We get the same objections all the time. So if you have prepared answers for those questions, you'll end up converting more potential clients into business.
Well, it shut him up because he sells a scallop dish for $16.95, and I said, well, Dwayne, I said, if I came in here and I said, hey, I want that scallop, but I only want to pay $2 for it.
Mhm.
Are you going to sell it to me?
Right.
He's like, well, no, because that costs money for those scallops. I'm like, well, there you go.
Perfect.
I turned my heels and I walked out.
Great.
Slam.
Awesome. Without further ado, I'm going to hand the stage over to Helen LeCount. 25 years real estate experience, 21 years real estate experience. Also, by the way, let me take this opportunity for those that are relatively newer to the program. Helen's our contracts coach for the PC program. So if you haven't already met Helen, today's a really good chance to get to know her, pick her brain, and she's specifically our contracts coach because she's got so much experience with contracts. She's got all the answers. Right, Helen? And if you don't know the answer, you know exactly where to go to find it. So
That's
please.
the contract.
right. So take advantage of this time with Helen, and we'll see you back over in the PC room afterwards. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys. So I broke my little toe, so I am wearing flip-flops. So I'm not wearing the attire of Keller Williams. But so my name is Helen LeCount. I was the first buyer agent on the first team in the state of Maine back in 97, 98, somewhere in there, with Patty T. Young and team with the RA Home Sellers. A lot of people never heard of buyer agency, and as we know now, it's a big deal because it used to be that everybody represented the seller and nobody represented the buyer. So there was a lot of disclosed dual agency or undisclosed dual agency that was happening. So the state recognized that there was a need for people to represent buyers exclusively. So for almost my entire career, I was a buyer agent on top teams. I was on a top team with ERA. I came over here in 2008 to Keller Williams, and I helped Jeff Matea build his team working on the buyer division as the lead buyer agent. And a couple of years ago, I was the assistant team leader for about 8 or 9 months. Thought I was done selling and realized I wasn't. I missed it. I felt like I still had a good run in me. So I actually, my son was 5 years old when I got into the business. He's 26 now, and he's my business partner. So we have our own team with an admin, and we'll be adding as we go. So today, I just really want to kind of talk to you about working with buyers, and as Joe mentioned, my buyer presentation is so scripted, I can start and finish in 45 minutes just like clockwork. If somebody interrupts me, I can go off in a little bit of a tangent and I can go right back to where I was, because I've been saying the same thing for so many years that I think when you have a script and you know where you're going with your script, it's so easy just to stay with it and be, I've heard people say, oh, wow, I had a great buyer consultation and I was with, the agent for 2.5 hours, or an agent saying that, and it's like, that's way too long. You're drifting off. You want to stay on point is what I want to mention. So the big thing is when you're working with buyers, buyers cost you the least amount of money. You can find buyers just about anywhere. when you're talking to people, ask the questions, who do you know that's renting that should be buying a home? Who do you know that just got married that might be looking to buy a home? Who do you know that is in a home that's too big and their kids are grown and they've gone off that might be looking to downsize? So if you chunk it down and ask people questions like that, and then zip it, give them a moment to process the question that you just asked, give them a moment to think about who they might know, and leave them with that thought, because they may call you up. And it's important, if you ask that question and say, listen, and you say, I can't think of anybody at the moment, that's awesome. Here's my card, which is why I gave you my card. Here's my card. If you think of anybody, please call me with their information so that I can go ahead and call them. That's a really important thing, versus just have them, hey, you have my card, have them call me. So there's a big difference. So, hey, John, I was talking to John yesterday, and he told me that you might be looking to buy a home, and he asked me to give you a call to see how I can help you. It turns it from a cold call into a warm call. So train your people to call you with their contact information, or somebody's contact information when they are referring. So you don't need to buy signs, you don't need to pay for photographers, pay for advertising when you're working with buyers. You just need to be able to know the inventory on the market. It's really important for you to preview properties, go to open houses. If you don't have any appointments with any buyers on a Sunday or a Saturday, stop by open houses. Stop by and meet Coldwell Banker and RE/MAX agents and support Keller Williams agents. The thing is that you as a real estate professional, it's our job to know the inventory on the market, okay? That's really, really critical. Stop by, set up appointments every time you come to work and leave work, so that all the properties that are in your neighborhood or your area, you should make it a point to go see them, okay? Same thing with for sale by owners. If you see a for sale by owner sign, call that for sale by owner. Hi, my name is Helen McCown. I'm with Keller Williams Realty, and I'm not calling you because I want to list your property. I'm calling you because it's my job as a real estate professional to know all of the inventory, including what is being privately sold. When can I come and take a look at your property? All right. That's the conversation. And you go out, you meet the person, now you know the property. Don't call and say, oh, I have a buyer for your house, if you don't have a buyer for that house. That's for people that are selling their homes, do not like that conversation, okay? Maybe you have somebody, but you don't know until you go in and take a look at it. When you're calling it for sale by owner, don't bring your clients with you on that first encounter with the for sale by owner, because that awkward conversation about how you get compensated is probably going to come up, okay? So, and that conversation, since we're on that topic, is, John, thank you for having me in your home. Out of curiosity, how did you come up with the price for the home? Do you have any property disclosures? How many showings have you had? How's that been going for you? Have you held any open houses? By the way, where are you going when you do sell? Do you need any help finding your next home? Oh, you're moving to San Jose, California. Would you like a recommendation to a top buyer agent in California? I can help you with that. We're an international company. We have top agents all around the world. How many of those buyers that have come into your home had representation? Oh, well, here's a staff. Here are some of my business cards, if you wouldn't mind giving them to some of those unrepresented buyers. Would you like me to do an open house on Sunday for you? It's a good way to pick up buyers. So what you're doing with that for sale by owner is you're not a threat to them. you're building a rapport. Maybe you're planting a few seeds, like they don't have a disclosure. They really didn't know how they came up with the price on their home. They came up with a price because their neighbor's home sold last year for that price. So they really don't understand the market, today's market. Most NAR statistics say that people selling their own homes leave about 9% on the table that they could have
Came from where?
NAR, National Association of Realtors. That was the last figure I know of. It may be slightly higher, but think about it. They don't want to list with a realtor because they don't want to pay that 5 or 6%. But if a national statistic is telling them that they're leaving approximately 9% on a national basis on the table that they could have made, why wouldn't they want to pay a real estate commission? I'm sorry, I think I keep hearing my tablet beeping. Is that mine?
Yeah, it's not.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can look here.
I don't know how quiet it is.
It's not that loud.
I'm gonna stash it somewhere. I just got it tomorrow.
You need a millennial.
I know, right?
Have any of you worked with any buyers yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I was, but after that they couldn't get pre-qualified.
They weren't pre-qualified?
So
Okay.
now we have to.
Yeah. And how was that conversation?
Which one? The first conversation or after the?
Well, how did you meet the buyer?
It was my super influence.
Okay,
So it's kind of like friendish.
okay,
So it wasn't hard. He was like, let's do it. I was just trying to give a presentation, and he was like, you don't need to do this. Just where I'm signing. So it was kind of
yeah,
he was just someone who would trust me.
yeah,
So we go look the properties. I put on a subscription on my MLS, and he was looking online. He was telling me like this. I was scheduled for 5-6 homes one day, and we were just walking around. It was good until we learned from the mortgage. They need to wait 1 more year
Okay.
because of self-employment.
okay. That's really important to get to, and when you're new, it's really exciting when somebody wants to look at a property. You know, do you run out and show them property just for the practice? Well, your job as a real estate professional is to know the inventory. So if somebody wants to go look at a property, why not, you know, if they can take a look at it. The risk is if they're not qualified, or they're qualified for less than what the property is that you're going to see, they're going to compare everything that they see from that point on to that nice one that they didn't get. So again, it all goes back to that whole necessity to be able to qualify the buyer and to be able to bring them in for an appointment. I want to just kind of point. I don't know if I can. I don't know what this is. Oops, it's not sitting. Okay.
There's a thing on the back there, I don't know, maybe that's just so dry that it's not, no, the eraser.
Oh. Yeah.
It's probably been on there so long.
Yeah, so water. Okay.
Yeah, but if you write underneath it, that one will probably come off easy.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. All right. Here's something I want you to write down. LP Mama. LP Mama.
That sounds good.
Location. Price. Motivation. Agent. Mortgage. Appointment. if you nail this, LP Mama, just remember to be able to, when you're on the phone with somebody, or you're having a conversation, or you're at a barbecue with somebody, and somebody says, I'm thinking about buying a home. Great, awesome. What areas are you looking at? Oh, we're talking Portland, South Portland, Wyndham, Scarborough, Saco, and Gorham. Oh, great, awesome. Out of curiosity, why those locations? Oh, well, you know, my mother is in a assisted living and I wanna be 20 minutes from where she's at. Don't ever jump in and go, oh yeah, because of the good schools, right? No. Maybe they have no interest in the schools. Or, oh yeah, it's because of the beaches, or just less is more. Okay? Or maybe they've called on a property that you have listed. Oh, that's a great property, we're getting a lot of calls on that. Just out of, you know, that's a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, great neighborhood, listed at $459. Is that in your price range? Well, it's a little bit higher than my price range, but I'd really like to take a look at it. Well, you know, I'd love to be able to help you with that, but actually, if it's a little out of your price range, we're in a pretty aggressive seller's market here. So I'd probably want to have you talk to a lender about, before we look at this property, because it's my professional obligation to make sure that I have qualified buyers going into these properties before I actually show. Because if you saw that property today and you wanted to make an offer, I wouldn't be able to write an offer for you until I knew that you could secure the financing. That's part of a conversation you may be having with somebody on the phone. Out of curiosity, what's your current situation? Is that an invasive question? Out of curiosity. Use the words like, just out of curiosity, or it'll come to you below. But the motivation piece, oh, you're renting. Are you month to month, or do you have a lease? Oh, you have a lease. How long is your lease till? Oh, January of next year. How likely is it that if you found the perfect property, you'd be able to break your lease today? Oh, no, not likely at all. Well, then we're really not in a position now to be looking at property, but what I could do is set you up on a search, or send you my app, so that you can start, you know, watching the market, and then I'll stay in touch with you about, let's start, maybe reconvene in November. Oh, you're month to month. Oh, okay, great. So how likely would it be that if you started looking at property that you'd be ready to make an offer on something in the next couple of weeks or the next month? We're in a very fast market, so you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that you're ready to buy a home, where are you at? I'm at a 5. Okay, what would it take to get? What would it take to get you to 10? Well, I have a lease until January. I have to finish school, or whatever their situation might be. That's going to help shape whether or not they're an A, B, or a C buyer. A buyer is ready that they're ready to go. B, not so much. Maybe a B buyer is going to be more, you know, 3 to 6 months out, and a C buyer might be, you know, 6 to 12 months out. So it's important that you understand that, you know, you want to be able to ask the questions and not feel like you're being too intrusive to the buyer by asking these questions. You go to a doctor's office, or you sit in a waiting area, they want your height, they want your weight, they want to know what you're allergic to, and all of that. It's like, why would you, you know, falsify that information when you're going to a doctor who's going to help with whatever symptoms you might have for some. Same thing in our profession. You know, the more we know about the situation of a buyer, the better we're going to be able to find them what they need and understand what their needs are, and to be able to help them. Agent, this is a big one. I learned that one when I was taking a water taxi off one of the islands to get to Portland to show a property to somebody left a company outing to show a property to somebody because they were hot for this property. And they said, thank you so much for showing me the property. I'm gonna make an offer. I'm gonna contact my agent to bring you an offer. And I was a buyer agent, but shame on me because I didn't know enough to say, oh, have you looked at any other properties with any other agents? Oh, you have. Have you signed a buyer agent agreement? I was afraid to ask that question. I thought that was kind of rude. Never, that was a big lesson learned. Are you a cash buyer or do you need to take a mortgage? There's a ton of cash out there, okay? When I got in the business, I was struggling, I was broke, I was scared. I couldn't imagine anybody having cash to buy a house. So I never asked the question until a lot later in my career when all of a sudden it was like, wow, people do have cash. I sold $1,025,000 condo a couple of years ago, sight unseen, to 2 retired attorneys from New York City while they were vacationing in Santa Barbara with a $50,000 earnest money. And their daughter had referred them to me because I had just sold the daughter and son-in-law a home who had moved up here from Connecticut. So luckily I had the daughter with me the whole time, like FaceTiming everything and the conference calls and everything that we were on. And as we were walking into the walkthrough, the buyer gentleman said, well, if she doesn't like it, it's only $50,000. Knowing that if they defaulted on the contract, they would have lost $50,000.
Isn't that crazy?
Only 50. I know it's crazy, but so don't hesitate to say that to people. Are you a cash buyer? Or do you need to take a mortgage? And if they say, oh, well, I'm a cash buyer, I'll be paying cash for that. That's great. Just so you know, if we do find a property and go under contract, you're going to need to be able to provide proof of funds. Okay, proof of funds is just going to be simply a letter from their bank, their financial institution. Some people will provide bank statements, blacking out account information that'll show how much money they have in the bank. But you do need to have proof of funds when you're dealing with a cash buyer. So that's, you gotta let them know that right up front so that you're not asking for that as you're going through writing an offer and negotiating, and all of a sudden they feel like you're asking for something very private for them. No, you show me that you have money.
Show
So that's great. So what I'd like to do is just to schedule an appointment for you to come into the office and meet me. You've got to close for the appointments. We've got a beautiful office. We've got a very professional office setting. We have 4 conference rooms. Bring them to the office. If you're in Bridgeton or you're somewhere where the office, too far from the office, then maybe you meet them somewhere at a Starbucks or whatever, but any chance that you can get them into the office. So what I'd like to do is just to set up an appointment for you to come into the office so I can prepare you for the market. Gotta do it. So when you do that, you usually want to have somebody know that you're bringing a client in, so you want to make sure that you have a conference room reserved, and that's by calling the front desk and asking for a conference room. If there is a closing going on, that closing will trump your buyer consultation. So if you want the Creighton room and there's a big closing, you're not going to get the Creighton room, but you might get one of the other rooms downstairs, okay? If you know that the buyers have come in from a long drive, just think about that. They've got the kids, they've come in for a long drive, they're coming in. Maybe you have some change and some money at your desk and you have kind of a buddy system and say, hey, I've got some people coming in. Anybody need to use the restroom? Great. They're down the hallway here. Anybody need any coffee or any sodas or anything like that? Maybe you have a buddy that's going to make the coffee that they need and get the waters and get the snacks or whatever, so that you're not fumbling around, like they're in the conference room and you're fumbling around trying to find money and making coffee and all that. Have that buddy, any one of us, you know, will help you with that, so that you're not messing with all that, but you're recognizing they might be thirsty, they might want something, but your attention needs to be in that conference room with them, so that you can actually start talking to them about, you know, how was the trip, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about, you know, how much do you know about Maine, or how much do you know about this area? What areas might you be looking at? And some people don't know. Some people come in and they don't know Maine, or they don't know the Portland area. So you as the real estate professional have to start figuring stuff out here. Like, tell me what are the most, what I say to people is like, paint me a picture of your perfect house. And all of a sudden, you gotta zip it. Oh, it's gotta have 4 bedrooms, it's gotta have open concept, gotta have a big backyard, okay? All right, so let's slow it down, let me understand this. Tell me about the 4 bedrooms. Why is that important to you? Okay, talk to me about this open concept. What does that look like? Are we talking old, or are we talking new? And the guy pipes up and he needs a workshop. What kind of workshop? What do you do? Let them talk. Oh really, tell me more. That's out of curiosity. What kind of chemicals might you use in that workshop? I mean, go deep, peel the onion. You know, just don't go surface. Get a little deeper, okay, by asking them, you know, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Because you might have somebody that wants a workshop that might involve chemicals or something, and maybe that workshop should not be in the basement of that house if they have a forced hot air system where those chemicals are gonna be coming up into the house. So maybe that person with that workshop needs a barn, or needs an outbuilding or something. So, you know, what are the top 5 most important things to you? And that's when people will start telling you stuff. Well, I want walkability. Walkability to what? Well, to coffee shops and the library and kind of the bakery or downtown area. Does that all of a sudden exclude all kinds of places that you might be thinking of? I want to be 10 minutes from Maine Med. Really? Why is that important to you?
I have a $50,000 down.
No, think about it. When somebody says I need to be 10-15 minutes from Maine Med.
Health issue or concern. For what?
Why is that? Well, tell me more. You're not invading their privacy. They're telling you something that's very, very important to them. So they tell you that, don't be showing them properties in Hollis. Seriously.
That's dumb.
Well, people, you know, I'm just telling you, I've had many people that have fired their buyer agent and they've come to me and I've sat down with them and said, tell me what you're looking for. And they're like, the last agent didn't even ask us that.
Wow.
The lender said they could qualify between 250 and 3, so we were just showing them homes in that price range. They never asked us they never asked us any of the questions that you're asking. Think about that. So when somebody says, I want no more than 15 minutes from Maine Med, you better make sure you're not showing them anything further out than that, because there's a reason for that. My daughter's epileptic. I have to be that close to Maine Med. Okay, fair enough. Here's another set of things. Ford. Yeah?
Yep.
O-R-D. F is for family. O is for occupation. R is for recreation. And D is for dreams. Now you have to be careful about, for familial status, of saying, so tell me everybody, you know, who's in your family? Maybe it's, so tell me who's gonna be living in the home. Well, I've got my, you know, my husband and, my mother and my 2 kids. Okay, that's great. What are your kids' names? How old are they? What about any pets? If you have an older couple and they have 2 dogs, go deep on that, because those 2 dogs are their kids. Oh, really? What kind of dogs? Oh, what are their names? Muffy and Fluffy. What kind? And they're Shih Tzus. And you see them posting their Muffy and Fluffy's pictures on Facebook. Okay? You better want to know about Fluffy and Muffy, because when Muffy dies on Facebook, you need to send a card. You need to pick up a call. You need to pick up the phone and say, I'm really sorry about Muffy. Yeah, I know how important that dog was to you. So D, occupation. So tell me what you do professionally. Oh, you're a doctor. What kind of doctor? Really? And how long have you been practicing medicine? And where do you practice? So you must work a lot of hours. And what about you? Oh, you're a school teacher. Where at? Oh, really? How do you like that? Have you always taught 3rd grade? Have you always been, how long have you been at that school? Wow, a long time. So you know a lot of people, you know. So out of curiosity, when do you 2 have time to look at properties together? That's a big deal. You're probably not in a position as a doctor to just jet out to take a look at a property, but you know, and you want to monitor, like if you've got a couple, you want to monitor how in sync they are. There are some, that doctor might say whatever my wife wants. We've bought 10 homes together all across the United States. I work a lot of hours. She knows what I like. She knows what I don't. And if that conversation takes place, then I'm going to take that wife out to look at properties when it hits the market, because he's not going to be able to leave work. Okay? You might be able to jet out on your lunch hour from school. But when you have that conversation during that buyer consultation, and the two partners are at completely, she wants new, he wants old. She wants the big formal dining room, he doesn't care about it. She wants the 4,000 square foot, he could live in an igloo. You do not want to be showing them properties separately, okay? So again, our job is to educate people on our market. Right now we're in a seller's market, which means there are more buyers than there is existing inventory, which means there are multiple offers on just about every property that comes on the market. So you want to be able to prepare people for that and say, listen, you know, and you may have buyers that say, you know what, I'm going to be taking a trip, but I want to make an offer on this property from California. That's a sight unseen offer. That's probably not going to be a good offer. Sometimes you'll see listing agent must accompany when you go to show a property and you're FaceTiming. Yeah, this is the living room, this is the dining room, this is the kitchen, and blah, 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 blah. And then you write an offer, and that listing agent's like, your buyer wasn't there. Your buyer didn't see that property. You were FaceTiming your buyer, and I know that they were in Connecticut. So I'm not feeling really comfortable about your offer, even though it's a great offer, but that buyer hasn't seen the property, and there are 8 other offers that have. So be thinking about that. So that you've got to find out when they can see the property together. What do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do as you know, tell me about the activities in your household. Well, the kids play hockey. We ski. We've got a summer camp. We have a boat. Now all of a sudden you need, what do you need?
Yard space, storage space.
When somebody says something like, well, we just need someplace really small, we don't need anything, and then you start talking to them, hockey, skis, boating equipment, boat, so where do you store your boat? Oh, well, we were hoping to store it at our new house. Okay, well, we need to be talking about that. See what I'm talking about? Alright, and then this is a really important one, and a lot of people don't think about this, a lot of realtors don't think about it, and it blows my mind. Food service. That's those people are food service, Coast Guard, any military, medical interns, those people rotate in and then they rotate out. So they may be coming in with Cisco as at an executive level, Poland Springs. They might be Coast Guard. Okay, they may not know this, but the most important thing for you to know for them is resale. Because they may have orders to transfer out on a fairly short notice, and they need to sell their house, and their house needs to sell quickly. So you as a real estate professional need to understand that, because you have an obligation to help guide them into the areas in the home that's going to sell quickly. I had this happened to me. It was an executive, Poland Springs, Nestle Water, coming in from California. She and her husband were infatuated with this 1800s farmhouse with a dilapidating barn on the Saco River in Hollis that had been on the market for 800 days. And I think part of the problem was the barn. And there was lead paint, and it was just a big old home, and it needed a ton of work, and they were just, it was their fantasy to have this house in Maine. And after I met with them and went through all of this, I said, listen, I can show you this property, but honestly, I would be doing you a disservice to sell you this property, and this is why. And I ended up, and they listened, which was good, because I would have morally had a really hard time selling them the property. And as it turned out, I sold them a property on Presidential Way in Westbrook, and sure enough, she got called to go to another state and had a very short period of time, called and said, we need to list the property. We had it under contract within a couple of days. Had I been a weaker agent and just went for the deal and the closing, I would have sold them the house in Hollis, and then probably still had their home in Hollis on the market now. And this happened years ago. So that's a really big deal. When you're dealing with a first-time home buyer and they're looking at, and they just got married, and they're still newlyweds, and they're all excited, and you're showing them a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot home off of Brighton Avenue. And they're giddy, and they love it, it's so adorable, it's cute, and everything. And maybe you need to ask them the question and just say, this may come off as a personal question, but out of curiosity, do you plan on having a family in the next few years? Yeah, actually, we want to have 2 kids in the next few years. Maybe that 800 square foot 2-bedroom home isn't the right home for you to sell them.
It's true.
You gotta ask that
We bought
question.
an old farmhouse, and they raised 6 kids there. I don't know how the hell they did it, but whatever, they slept on top of each other. They had to.
Yeah.
We bought the place for 52, but then we had to turn and put 30 into it,
Right.
to make it livable.
Yep. Well, so those are things, again, it's like, this is our profession, and the more you learn, the more you know the inventory, the better you're gonna be in being this direct with people to be able to say, listen, why don't we try to find a home that's a little bit bigger, might cost you, a couple thousand, $10,000 more, but in the long run, I'd rather sell you something that you can grow into and not be calling me in a year or two because you're busting at the seams and you need to sell this home. We don't know where the market's going to go. Right now, we're in a very aggressive seller's market. The market cannot sustain this, okay? The market is going to shift. It's not gonna, hopefully, it's not going to do what it did in 2007, 8, 9, and 10, okay? Because I think the economy is stronger than that now, but it's going to adjust, all right?
Can I ask you why it can't sustain that? Because I've heard that from
can't.
many different people.
It can't, because of affordability. So think about it, the cost of living keeps going up. Salaries go up, or people's wages and salaries go up more modestly.
Sure.
And so when your income, your debt to income ratio, and your income is more than.
Can't sustain your debt.
You can't sustain your debt.
So that's what the housing market will
it's
crash.
it's
or
about
not crash, but it will
adjust.
level out. Adjust.
It'll level out. So
Okay.
this is, I'm covering a lot of what this Ignite session covers, just not
Is it book?
in the book and in order. So I apologize if
This is how it's supposed to be.
this is how I'm just going with the flow here, but I want to cover this. This is really important for you to get perspective here. In 2011, there were 5.7 million people between the ages of 22 and 32 who had moved back home with their baby boomer parents because they were laden with student debt and they couldn't find jobs in the fields that they went to school for, okay? And so that was called doubling up. 5.7 million people, okay? At that time, the financing had become so difficult and tightened up so much. 5.7 million people between the ages of 22 and 32 between 2010 and 2011 had moved back home to be with their baby boomer parents in the United States. The mortgage guidelines had tightened up so much that it was very difficult for anybody to buy, especially condos. There was an oversaturation of condos across the United States. It was all based on speculation. They were all second home builds. Phoenix, Texas, California, Florida. So all of a sudden, all these homes that were under contract with deposits to be built, all of a sudden those were second home buyers and they all pulled out, okay? So meanwhile, these millennials are all moving in with the baby boomer parents. Some of them were taking care of their aging parents. So there was no need for new flooring, new furniture, new TVs, new dishwashers. So it was like the entire economy is driven by the housing market. So it was like sludge in a funnel, is the best way that I can describe it. Builders stopped building. And so you had all this pent up demand with these young buyers, okay, who became better buyers, who were able to save money, who were able to establish better credit. So fast forward 2015, the market absolutely exploded. It exploded with the millennials and the baby boomers.
So you're saying because of that time between 2010 2011, they became better buyers, which made the market.
They became older first-time home buyers because
With
they
more
had,
money.
yeah, they had to wait until they could they could buy, and then by that time, the mortgage guidelines had loosened up a little bit to allow the buyers to be able to buy, and so they were an older first-time buyer in many cases, but they were competing with the baby boomers. And and you still find that when Willard Beach, like whenever, or something on the East End comes up, the first-time home buyers really can't compete because there are so many baby boomer cash buyers that are trumping the boomers, or the millennials. So so anyway, it's important that you understand that, because so meanwhile, these time ticked by, the builders weren't building, okay? So now there's this lack of inventory. During the time when it was so bad, I personally fought and renegotiated my mortgage. It took a long time and a lot of effort, and it was very scary during that time, but come hell or high water, I was not leaving my profession. And I had a single mom, I had my son to raise, and and a lot of people didn't know that they could do that, and a lot of people just gave up because they just couldn't keep up, and they lost their homes. So there's a segment of people that are in homes that they should be selling, but they renegotiated their mortgage so that they're staying put. And then there's a huge segment that lost their homes and damaged their credit. So there was a lot of that went on, and it's important that you sort of understand that little bit of history. Now, there is a lot of shadow inventory of sellers who want to sell, but they can't compete in the market today because they don't want to put their house on the market because they know it'll go very quickly. And so as the market shifts, when it cools down a little bit, what's going to happen, prices are going to start coming down, and that shadow inventory, we're already seeing a little bit of that. We're seeing offers being countered with subject to seller finding suitable housing. Is that a good deal for the buyer?
No. They're sitting up waiting for the seller to decide if they can find a house if they want or not.
Yeah, I was trying to write an offer yesterday, and the buyer, we actually wrote the offer and we withdrew it within an hour, because it was like, what? This is ridiculous. Like, the seller wanted 45 days to find suitable housing, and if they couldn't at the end of 45 days, contract was null and void. And I wrote in, if buyer finds another property and seller's has not found suitable housing, buyer can be released on 24-hour notice, get released from the contract, withdrawn from the contract to be able to buy something else. But it's like, that's not a good offer. But anyways, so the point is.
So you can write that in there, like if they have a contingency of finding suitable housing, you can write in a contingency for.
Yeah.
If we find something, you guys still haven't found it, and we're out.
Yep. I mean, it has to be agreed upon by
Yeah,
everybody,
sure.
but yeah, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
you don't want to tie your buyer up for 45 days and all of a sudden they're back to square one and they've missed a month and a half of the market. You want to be able to get them withdrawn and move on to the next. Any questions about any of that? No, I've covered a lot of funky stuff.
Good.
But, okay. I don't even know how to do this.
Do you want to look at mine? At my notebook?
No, I have a cheat sheet, but I don't know how to do this.
Maybe hit the arrow and like go through the slides on the keyboard.
Yep, yeah, Gabe, figure it out.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at that, I got it.
Okay, okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Good job. All right, so we've done that. Anybody doing note cards?
Handwritten notes?
I'm gonna buy something in.
Yeah.
I actually
You're gonna what?
Buy something.
also send a gift card to one of his boss I told. And they come back to me, so we're still on the process of talking.
I would caution you a little bit about that, because I know the commission is a little bit strict on any kind of, financial incentive for business. If John referred me to a seller or buyer, I am forbidden to send him a gift card as a thank you for that piece of business that he referred me to in that thank you note. So it's important that you be careful about that, because that could be a violation. However, maybe it's a thank you note, and then a week later it's it's I see you and I hand you something. I don't know the legality of it. I just know that Kathy Manchester talked about that in one of her videos a couple of weeks ago. So be careful.
It was a thank you because she showed me her house and we got that relation between us.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I will.
Okay. Handwritten notes are just not, people don't do them very often. So if you see somebody, recently lost somebody, a sympathy card is good. If you see somebody they've got a birthday coming up, maybe a birthday card. Liking and commenting and engaging on Facebook is also good, as long as you're not like, really a lot of me, self-promotion, all that. It's make it about them. Finding buyers is simple. We talked about that. Bridal shows, roaming around a bridal show, roaming around a home show, wearing apparel that shows. I have a name badge. I have one name badge. It's in my car. I paid $10 for it 20 years ago, and it's got a little magnetic thing. It's got my name and whatever. And I always wear either my name badge or I wear this kind of stuff everywhere I go. And this is where you have to be the master of your profession, because when you put yourself out there as a realtor and you give, this is how I feel about it, give back to the community that you live in, or be involved in the community that you want to be the master of. People will recognize you as a realtor and a go-to resource. And people will come up to you and say, hey, what did that house in Scarborough sell for, John? Or what about that yellow house? I just saw that go on the market. Who's got that list? Or John Harmon has that listed. What's that listed for? You might not know it off the top of your head, but if you
Give me your contact information, I'll get back to you.
yeah, what's your phone number? I'll send you my app. Let me look it up on Flex. Oh, 429. Here, by the way, what's your phone number? I'll send you my app. Okay. Or, well, you know what, that house just reduced, that house was on the market, I actually saw it yesterday, it was on the market, it came back because there was some mold in the attic, seller said they were gonna take care of it, buyers walked, so do you have any interest in seeing it? Tell me what's your situation, are you in the market? I mean, that's when you're really good, because if you get really, really good working with buyers, and this happens, you may have buyers that fly in and they're only here for a couple of days because he is interviewing at Maine Med and she wants your time as a realtor to show you the different areas. And you need to make a decision as a real estate professional. Do I have the time, or do I invest my time into half a day, 3/4 of a day, with people that I don't know are actually gonna buy here? But if I do, I have a pretty darn good chance that they're not gonna shop me with other agents. I'm going to pick them up at their hotel. I'm going to show her different areas, different neighborhoods. We're gonna stop, we're gonna have lunch, so that if the husband does get the job offer, and he does take the job, chances are I've already solidified that relationship with those people, and I will be their realtor And I will have, here's the thing, like, if you have people that fly in to look at property, they're either coming in to look at property with the full expectation by the time they get on that flight at Logan to fly back to wherever they're at, or Portland, that they'll be under contract. So if you need to be prepared for that. You may have other buyers that you're working with, and you're gonna really need to clear your slate to be able to accommodate those people. If they can't get under contract during that time, you need to understand their needs so well that you're going to be able to see a property that comes on the market, and if they haven't already texted or called you first, you need to be able to get out and preview that property and have enough confidence to say, you need to get on a plane and get in here. Showings start on Friday. I'll pick you up at the airport. That's how important understanding their needs are, and spending that time developing that rapport and that trust, that they trust you enough that they know that you know what they're looking for, and that they're gonna invest that money and their time and get on a plane, and you're gonna pick them up, and you're gonna get them under contract on that property. It's a big responsibility, but it happens in what we do. It's the reality. Lead generate, qualify buyers, and sign buyers. You know, when I started years ago, I was so intimidated with asking anybody to sign any paperwork, it was ridiculous. Because nobody ever taught me how to do it, or told me the importance of doing it. So I think what I can impart on you is, this is our profession, and I'm very assumptive when I'm meeting with somebody, because I'm at the point in my career where a lot of my business is repeat and referral business. I'm the family realtor to like big long lines of family members and so forth. But I still make it a point to go through all of this, because no two buyers are ever going to be the same. What's my thought on that? It'll come. It's a senior moment, I think. Oh, signing buyers. So a lot of people don't understand that there are differences in agency relationships, okay? A lot of people think if they call the listing agent, they're gonna get a better deal. That the listing agent's gonna show them the property, and that the listing agents will cut their commission to give them a better deal. Do you think that happens a lot? No? Do you think they understand what disclosed dual agency is?
No.
No. So,
Sorry.
that's okay. So that's why it's so important that you bring out the agency relationship form at the beginning of any significant, substantial conversation about real estate. And maybe that's not at a barbecue or a cocktail party, or, on the golf course. That might be a situation where, yeah, let's talk about that real estate and everything, but, legally, I really would like to just set up a time. Let's set up a time where we can formally meet and talk to you about real estate. Or you're at an open house, you might have the real estate forms with you, so that you can say, listen, John, I know you're asking me a lot of questions about real estate in this area, and right now, you're a customer, and there are differences in agency relationships, so you're asking me for a little bit more professional advice that I can only give if you were a client. There's a form here, it's not a contract, I just want to have you take a look at it and explain it to you. You don't even have to sign it, but it's important that I give it to you, so at least if you could initial it so I can make a copy of it, so that you know that I've talked about it. That's really important, and that's the reason why the Maine Real Estate Commission put this form out. I'd really love to talk to you more about, in-depth information about real estate in the community, but I can't do that unless, we enter into an exclusive buyer agency agreement. And I can talk to you more about that when we meet at my office on Wednesday afternoon at 2.
So if you're meeting them, say you're meeting them at a coffee shop,
Yeah.
you bring 2 copies of that, of both, so you can leave them?
You can, yeah.
Or can you do you bring it back to the office, scan it, and?
No,
email
you
a copy?
could have them sign it, and you could take a photo of it with your phone, and then you could email it to yourself, or you could have a scan app and just scan it.
But you can leave them.
You could leave it with them.
Leave them that form.
Yep.
Is it Form 3 then?
It's Form 3,
Okay.
yeah.
With the brokerage agreement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, people
What-
don't know what Form 3 is, but it's the agency relationship form.
Okay, and you leave that with them,
Leave that with them, yep, yep,
the exclusive buyer agent agreement.
yeah,
Do you bring 2 of those with you as well?
you can. But I don't bring that, if I'm meeting somebody, unless they say, hey, I really wanna work with you, what do I need to do? You could say, well, listen, I'll meet you at Starbucks, and I'll have some paperwork for you to sign, and then you can go through and start explaining what the forms are. Again, and if you have to meet them at a Starbucks or McDonald's or something, have 2 sets of that and have them sign each, so you have a set and they have a set.
So you should bring 2, okay.
But again, try to get them into the office.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're supposed to give them a copy of it at signing.
Yes, you are. That's why I always say bring them in the office,
Yeah.
especially if you're gonna be making an offer. But,
And it's supposed to be, according to the laws, at signing, they're supposed to get that copy.
correct.
Okay, so bring 2.
Yeah, bring 2. So, look, I would love to work with you, so, I can explain to you that there are differences in agency relationships. This is a form, it's not a contract. This talks about, being a customer, which means I cannot provide you any advice. I can only provide you ministerial acts.
Kinda like a transaction broker.
Yeah, yep. What I do, if I'm, having been exclusive buyer agent for so much of my career, I usually circle and say 100% of the people that I work with are buyers, are clients of mine. And there is a thing called disclosed dual agency. Disclosed dual agency is if you were to call the listing agent, ask them to show you the property, and they ask them to write an offer for you, that person needs your written consent that they understand that you are acting as a disclosed dual agent, which means you need to understand that their fiduciary duties and responsibility is to the seller, not to you, the buyer. Now, do you think people explain that piece really well if they're going to double dip?
No.
No.
No. Okay.
But there's things that they can't share on both sides, correct? If you're a
Correct.
disclosed dual agent, okay.
But there are things they
But your
cannot.
primary,
There are things they cannot, but why is this, what's the motivation of the seller?
Yeah.
What's the bottom line that the
But
seller will take?
does it become 50-50, like, equal representation?
Not really, it's a little more sided.
More favoritism.
Fiduciary
So-
is more to the seller.
Seller, okay.
Okay? And this is really important, so okay, now that we're on this topic, I wanna elaborate on that. We've all heard and seen 100 people showing up at an open house, okay? True fact. People lined up on one door, going through the house and coming out the other door. So if you are an agent hosting that open house, it might be a good idea for you to identify who you are and what your relationship might be to who. Think about it. And this is where I think probably there are a lot of, if there are complaints at the Real Estate Commission, it's probably around disclosed dual. Say you're a listing agent, you're doing an open house, it's your listing, and 100 people show up at the open house. Hi folks, welcome, my name's Helen LeCount, Great House, need you to sign in here, here are some disclosures, feel free to roam around, if you have any questions, let me know. A couple things to point out, the roof was just, put on last year, it's a Boderas boiler that just got, installed in April, and, sellers gave me permission to tell you that the only reason they're selling is he got transferred to Colorado. I'm here if you have any questions, okay? Timid buyer comes up. Excuse me, we'd like to make an offer, we don't know how this all works. You said, do you have an agent? No, we don't have an agent. I can help you.
Yeah.
I can help you. Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's go back to the office. All of a sudden, they're on their phone calling their parents and their friends, and you're on the phone with the listing agent, and you're calling and getting the paperwork ready, and somewhere in the conversation of the excitement and the adrenaline and the multiple offers coming in, and you're on the phone with other agents because you're the listing agent, and you're getting 3 other offers. Somewhere in the conversation of all of that, how clear was that listing agent with those buyers to explain disclosed dual agency?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Okay? So, 3 weeks into the contract, pregnant young wife, first child, radon comes back at 4.8. Well, don't you think, I was just Googling radon, and recommended levels in Maine are 2.0, and EPA standards recommended level is anything over 4. Don't you think we should ask the seller for mitigation? Now, if you're talking to a buyer agent, hell yeah. Of course we're gonna ask for mitigation. But that disclosed dual,
Hard position for you.
yeah,
But
like.
it does happen.
It does happen. Well, you know what, don't worry about it. That's not really that big of a deal. It is a big deal.
But I mean, you can be honest with it too.
You can.
And my friend sold my boyfriend's property, and she was dual,
Yep,
and she had to tell him, look, you need to put in a
Yep.
filtration system because of
yep,
the arsenic in the water.
Absolutely.
And then she, was working with the buyer.
right, right.
And the buyer, she's like, well, he's gonna do this, but you have to do this.
Yeah,
He's willing to do this, but
right.
if you're willing to do this.
I'm just kind of just stating a kind of a could happen scenario where maybe that agent doesn't want to lose the deal or rock the boat and may be minimizing something that should not be minimized to make that happen.
I feel like it's better for both parties to have their own agent.
It is.
Every time.
It is, and disclosed dual, if you do it right, with the right set of people, can be done, but you have to be careful that you understand what your role is in that transaction. It's the same thing if somebody wants you to be a transaction broker, okay? That means you represent no one. You've got 2 people that work for Hannaford, and they've been at each other's houses, 100 times, and one wants to buy the other's house. And they're not gonna do inspections, and they've already agreed upon a price, and they come to you and they say, I wanna buy Mary's house, can you help me with this transaction? Well, all right, you guys don't want any representation, I can be a transaction broker, and I can charge you a flat fee of $1,500 to do the paperwork and drive the transaction. Well, who's a good building inspector? I can't give you that, I can't advise you, you guys don't have any representation, you're gonna need to do that. So that's important that what hat are you wearing? So let's go back to the scenario of that open house with 100 people. Hi there, welcome, my name is Helen LeCount. Full disclosure, I'm with Keller Williams Realty, and I do not represent the seller. I'm here as an agent to help any unrepresented buyers. The roof was just installed, the Boderas boiler was installed in April, blah, 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 they're moving to Colorado, here are some disclosures. please make sure you sign in before you leave, and let me know if I can help you. That's an important, I don't think it's done very much. I think it's just really important, and it gives you an opportunity, you know, to pick up some buyers and maybe represent some buyers that need some help, and you put it out there that you're there to help anybody, So signing buyers is, I'd love to help you, just need to have you come into the office, there's gonna be some paperwork I'm gonna need to have you sign, and I'll go over it with you. You go through the Form 3, make sure you have that signed. A lot of times it's gonna be, come into the office, I'm gonna have you sign some paperwork, and you're gonna do it all at the same time. It's gonna be your Form 3, exclusive buyer agent agreement, your state mandated forms. Those are the 3 forms that you need to be able to provide to them, and you usually will, and you will want to probably email them out the transaction booklet, because on the exclusive buyer agency agreement, it says that you have given them a copy of the transaction booklet, which is like a 22-page booklet on things like lead paint and arsenic in the wood and arsenic in the water, and you know, a lot of people don't print that out, but you're checking off yes that you gave it to them, so you need to show proof that
Where do
you.
we get that?
It's on Zip Forms.
So,
It's called Residential Transaction Booklet. So the best thing to do when you meet with the buyer is just to get that paperwork out of the way, or with, and a lot of times if you're meeting buyers for the first time, you're not gonna be sitting there, you know, let's get some paperwork out of the way. They're gonna wanna know you. They're gonna want to hear, you know, get a sense of who you are, and, you know, build a rapport and a relationship and understand what their needs are. That's great. Now, so thank you so much for coming in. I'm glad we spent this 45 minutes going through a buyer consultation so I can educate you on what to expect in this market. If you choose to work with me, which I hope you do, because I'd love to work with you guys, I'm gonna have some paperwork that I need to have you fill out. And now that I have all of your information, I can go ahead and just send it all to you electronically if you'd like. So when I am in a buyer consultation, I'll just say, okay, John, what's your middle initial? Leanne, and what's Leanne's middle initial? And I have your email as this, Leanne, email, okay, yeah. And cell phone, and what's your mailing address? I'm getting it all. I want his formal name, I wanna know if he's a junior or a senior, I want their mailing address, so I can go from that consultation to preparing the buyer paperwork and get it all out to them. I want that out and in a loop somewhere, so that 3 days from now, when we go out and look at property and we find the perfect property, and I'm getting ready to write the offer, I'm not flubbing around with paperwork that I should have already done when I started working with them. Does that make sense? So, any questions? Okay, according to the 2014 NAR, National Association of Realtors profile of home buyers and sellers, 2/3 of all buyers interviewed only one agent.
Good closing percentage for us.
It's great.
Well,
It's
yeah.
great. But, and this will happen in early on, where somebody will say, yeah, I just, I'm calling a property, you haven't asked any of these questions. And in the beginning, when you have time, that's okay. I just would it's practice and it's experience, and I get all of that. I did the same thing. But I just would really make sure that you get a little savvy quicker than I did. I mean, I remember going to a 22-acre equestrian estate that was vacant when I first started in my career, and I'd have my 5-year-old with me, because I didn't have anybody else to drop him off with, and I'd have him in my heated car in the middle of winter while I'm showing complete strangers this huge equestrian estate. And I look at that, it's like, thank God nothing happened to me, you know what I mean? So, you have to be mindful of the fact that if you're running out and showing complete strangers properties at vacant properties, you have to think about whether or not you're comfortable with doing that, versus having brought them into the, if they're not willing to come and meet you and they just wanna look at a property, then maybe you bring another agent out with you to take a look at the property and say, hey, we're just previewing the property, we might as well take a look at it together. But serious people will do what you ask them to do. So, and sometimes when you're at a vacant property,